Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NR 2003-2021 NASCAR Cup Series season here on the channel. 3 races remain in the regular season. We go to a brand new course here of the Indianapolis Road Course. No oval this year for the 2021 season. Just 3 races remain in the regular season, and the points get closer and closer week after week. We will be keeping you updated on that points battle all day long. Here I am joined by JayCook for 50 laps around this track. You notice 60 on the top. That is for potential overtime if necessary. So 50 laps. Stage 1 will be 12 laps, completing when we hit lap 13. Stage 2 will complete when we complete lap 25, hitting lap 26. When we complete lap 24, hitting lap 25, But then we'll race it to lap 51. But like I said, I am joined by JayCook here for today's episode in Indianapolis. Jay, a track that we've seen an Xfinity race on in real life in the past, which was quite the entertaining race last year. What do you expect from a Cup Series race here with these guys, especially so late in the regular season with a lot of points on the line, especially for the bubble drivers?
I expect another exciting race here, and I think that these Cup guys are going to put on a pretty good show here, and especially when we have so many guys desperate for those last couple of playoff spots. We've only got 2 left to be gained, either with wins or with points, and right now it's extremely close with Chris Buescher above by 23 and 15th, Matt Dibenedetto above by 7 and 16th, and then Martin Truex Jr. down by 7, Tyler Reddick down by 22, and Kyle Busch out by 50. So all 3 of those guys that are below the cut line right now still have a chance for these final 3 races to get themselves into the playoffs. So it's going to be absolute desperation mode. Kyle Busch starting in a great position. So is Martin Truex. Matt Dibenedetto is a little bit further down in the field. So that's something we'll have to watch out for and hope for him to gain positions and put himself inside the top 10 before the end of this stage. But yeah, at the moment, the way that we're looking, this race is already going to start with Martin Truex getting himself into the playoffs as they run and Matt Dibenedetto being out.
2 guys that are on the outside, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., they both start in the top 3 with Busch on pole, Truex qualifying 3rd place. So that's already a big statement as we've been continuously seeing those 2 JGR drivers get better and better as the season goes on now, as it is a crunch time with 3 races left in the regular season. So Jay was mentioning Busch would be in 23 to the good. Starts around the same area as Matt Dibenedetto, about between 10th and 15th they are, and then you got the 8 of Tyler Reddick, who's quite a ways down the order there as you see him coming into the frame. He is 22 points below the cut line, so today he's going to need to step it up from where he's currently starting if he wants to be up in the mix here as we're getting ready to take the green flag. 50 laps around the Indianapolis road course. The first time we will ever see Cup Series action around this historic track, just not the oval now, as the green flag is out. Kyle Busch leads the way to the green flag alongside a road course ringer, of course, of Chase Elliott. Might notice some restarts are a little bit weird with this track, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we'll deal with it the best we can. Now, as we're going to see some very spread out action into turns 1, 3 wide, maybe even 4 wide, with some drivers, potentially Kevin Harvick, one of those drivers making a move. You see Matt Dibenedetto as Kyle Busch might lose the lead here on this opening few corners now, as we're watching Dibenedetto's 4 wide just about. That's very close for him, but it looks like they're going to keep it clean. Some great driving. Kyle Busch side by side right there with Chase Elliott now, as it's going to be very close between them as they're going to continue side by side here. Jay, we know every point matters and only 12 laps here in stage 1, so there's not a whole lot of time. So Kyle Busch's got to be fighting as hard as he can here to keep that lead, but it looks like he's not going to have enough.
Yeah, it seems like already that Chase Elliott is showing that he's going to have a good car today, and Kyle Busch is, maybe a little bit caught out there by Chase Elliott and caught up by surprise. So Kyle Busch still being in second place is still good points for him. But I'm sure he wants to get that coveted first position, to get that playoff point, and to get himself max points available. He's got to start digging at the moment. 50 points down is not impossible, but it is starting to get harder for Kyle Busch, so he's really got to start gaining some points.
Get an update real quick on Tyler Reddick. He is not off to a great start there, just in front of Ross Chastain. Definitely some work to do. Everybody somehow got off to a pretty clean start here, which is good to see. As Kyle Busch, though, as we get back to the live frame, clearly has gotten to the back of the 9 of Elliott and now is moving back in front of him here as they come through back onto this front straightaway. So Kyle Busch back to the lead and leads the first and opening lap of the Indianapolis road course. Truex did lose a few positions. He's down to now the 5th spot, but Truex is only 7 points below the cut line. Dibenedetto actually had a relatively good start outside of the top 10 on the start, now finds himself in 9th place at the end of lap 1. So that just puts 4 points between him and Martin Truex Jr., who now gains 1 spot. Truex up into 4th place over Joey Logano. Now, I mean, Matt Dibenedetto, he's considered to be, I mean, pretty competitive when it comes to road course racing, certainly showing that right now, as he's now going to move up another spot into 8th place. So this could be a good day for him, but obviously when you think road course ringers, you're thinking Martin Truex Jr. So it really doesn't play into Matt Dibenedetto's hands here when you're late in this regular season with 2 road courses in the mix.
Yeah, Matt Dibenedetto might be pretty decent at road courses, but when you're going up against, and when the person you mainly have to go up against is Martin Truex Jr., especially in those points, it's going to be, it's going to be pretty tough for him. And with how good Martin Truex is at these road courses, specifically the more tricky road courses, the more what's the word I'm looking for?
Technical?
Yeah, technical. Thank you. The more technical road courses, which I would consider this track to be pretty technical, especially in this very tight infield section here. He's very good at the more technical road courses, and that's where he shines. So I think that we'll see him be very competitive today, and it might be a struggle for Dibenedetto to keep himself inside the playoffs. But with the way that he's running at the moment, if he's truly got the fast car and is able to keep that with him all day long, Dibenedetto could look at a potential top 5 or maybe even top 3 car. So even if Truex is able to finish 2nd or so, then he won't lose many points, if any at all.
There in the frame, you see Denny Hamlin, by the way, right behind William Byron. Hamlin kind of stole the victory last week at Watkins Glen, his 2nd career Watkins Glen victories. He's right on the back of the 24 of William Byron. But definitely, we didn't see that coming, Jay. I mean, Hamlin just played the strategy right, and there was a lot of strategy going on in that race, which was really cool to see for us. Now, there was so many different strategies, and it worked out for Denny in the end. Didn't lead any laps all day long until like the final 2. So they made that work. So I think what was a calm race turned into, of course, some craziness, especially at the end. We had a couple big crashes mixed in here and there, and then, of course, we had Matt Dibenedetto specifically get completely taken out by his Alliance teammate, Brad Keselowski, who just so happens to be a few spots behind there. But that could be the moment of the season right there if Matt Dibenedetto misses the playoffs here in a couple weeks' time. We're going to look at Watkins Glen as that moment that was completely unnecessary that got him wiped out by an Alliance teammate and took him out of the playoffs this year.
Yeah, that was certainly a very huge moment. Dibenedetto was likely going to be in that 15th position ahead of Chris Buescher, and he was going to be quite a ways ahead of Martin Truex and those other guys outside the playoffs as well. And then, we come down to the final lap, and all of a sudden his teammate is dooring him and completely taking him out, putting him in a huge crash. So it certainly is a good thing that he's still inside of the playoffs at the moment, but he's at a much worse disadvantage now than he would have been had he finished where he was running, which I think was inside the top 10 and maybe around the top 5. But another thing, I was just taking a look at the points while you were talking there, and one thing we haven't really talked about much is the regular season points lead. It's actually really close at the moment. Kyle Larson currently has the lead at 817, and then right behind him is Chase Elliott with 804, and then we've also got 2 other guys kind of close behind as well. We have to go there a little bit further back, but Hamlin at 785 and Almirola at 782. So we've actually kind of got a 4-way lead, or a 4-way battle here for that regular season championship, which those fairly important 15 playoff points. That's a huge thing to these drivers, and really even if you can finish in the top 3. So it's really close to that 3rd spot there between Denny Hamlin and Eric Almirola.
Yeah, that's something we haven't paid a whole lot of attention to. I remember last week when I was editing the points, I did notice it a little bit, but forgot to mention it. But yeah, only 13 points between Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, and as of right now, Elliott's running 5 positions better, so that will cut it down to below 10 if it remains this way at the end of stage 1. Chase Elliott has made one heck of a charge, because I remember earlier this year he was down towards the kind of bottom 10 area of the points. I think he was even outside of the top 10 at one point, and now here he is trying to make a charge for a regular season championship now. And Elliott only surprisingly has 1 win on the season compared to Larson's 3. And then Jay mentioned, of course, Hamlin with 785 points. He is not too too far back. He's currently not running in the top 10, and Eric Almirola 782, who's having a solid run right now in the 6th position. So that's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on here over the next few weeks. And of course, we got Michigan, which is going to be a plate race style event. And then, of course, Daytona. You guys know exactly how that's going to be, the plate race event there as well. So there's 2 guaranteed wild races on the way, and that brings up a scenario as well where Alex Bowman, who's guaranteed now over 100 points out, he's in a must-win scenario to make the playoffs. Jay, we see him running right now just outside of the top 10, battling for 11th with Custer, but Hendrick Motorsports, Alex Bowman, very strong plate package that team is able to bring to Daytona. We could very well see Alex Bowman steal a win at Daytona when it matters the most for that team.
Unfortunately for Hendrick, most of their speed at Daytona seems to be the Daytona 500. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what the difference is between the Daytona 500 and the Coke 0400 every year they go there. But they're still good. Don't get me wrong, but they always seem to be just the absolute dominant force of Daytona 500, specifically the qualifying for that race. And then the Coke 0400 is when everybody seems to kind of catch up to them, and they don't always have other guys up towards the front and leading the laps and winning all those races. So. I still think that we will have to look out for Bowman, specifically with that team he's on. They were the fastest ones consistently out of all those 4 teams, pretty much from year to year there for 3 or 4 years. So he will be, I think, a force to look at Daytona. But I'm not sure if we're going to wind up seeing him in victory lane. He has not had the luck this season at all. Pretty much everything has gone against him. So I think that, when you're at a track where you're pretty much relying on luck almost to get a win, I feel like Alex Bowman is a pretty heavy disadvantage there.
Matt Dibenedetto, by the way, on a charge while we were looking through the field. He also got passed. He didn't pass Brad Keselowski. Never mind. Keselowski was behind him. I was just noticing him getting a lot closer to the cars in front. I just kind of thought he did. But no, Keselowski got past Kurt Busch, so Kurt's fallen off a little bit. But we're definitely seeing Dibenedetto close in to this group of cars up in front of him of Kyle Larson, Eric Almirola, as well as Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano. A little bit further up ahead is Martin Truex Jr., who passed Kevin Harvick and now is up into 3rd place. So this is a very crucial charge for Dibenedetto because now he's seeing the 2 guys that are chasing him down in the points for that final spot still up ahead of him, especially with Kyle Busch right now with a comfortable lead over Chase Elliott. I mean, Kyle Busch has a decent road course racing resume. He's won a few of them in his career. Back in 2008, he swept the road courses at Sonoma and Watkins Glen for the only 2 we had that year. But he won Sonoma back in 2015, that year that he went on to win a championship as well. But we're definitely seeing that 9 close in on him here as this run goes on, but nonetheless, Kyle Busch stepping it up very big today at Indianapolis, and this could be a crucial moment for their season.
I was just going to mention that it seems like for the last several laps, they've kind of been trading lap times. One lap, Kyle Busch is faster. The next lap, Chase Elliott gains a little bit. But this time around, it seems like Chase Elliott doesn't seem like he was a lot faster than Kyle Busch. And now he's going to make a move into turn 1, already going for the lead here. All of a sudden, Chase Elliott's car has gotten turned up, and he's come out of nowhere.
And he's going to easily clear the 18 of Kyle Busch in that M&M's Toyota Camry. So Chase Elliott out in front in that Napa Auto Parts Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet Camaro now, as obviously we always expect Elliott to be a competitor when it comes to the road races. And surprisingly, he has not won a road course race this season in the NR2003 series. He was in the mix at Circuit of the Americas. Everything went wrong for him in the final stage. He was in position to win last week in Watkins Glen, and they didn't quite hit the strategy as well as Denny Hamlin, and then they had to settle for a 2nd place finish, I believe it was. So today could be the day where they finally turn things around there for that team on the road courses and find victory lane. We'll have to wait and see, of course, as he continues to drive away from Kyle Busch. And right now it seems to be just those 2 guys that class at the field, because they got 3 seconds to this guy right here in 3rd place of Martin Truex Jr. So everybody's definitely got to work on their cars hard and find something here going into stage 2. Kevin Harvick having a very strong run here today. Talk about being quiet. We haven't spoke really much about Kevin Harvick other than the fact when he's been getting caught up into some trouble ever since he won the first 2 races of the season. But Jay, now all of a sudden, if they can put these runs together, it seems like they might be finding something at the right time of the year leading into the playoffs.
Certainly the right time of the year with only 3 races left as well. It's not like he's doing it with 10 or 11 races left. There's only 3 left in this regular season. So it's the right time for that team if they really have found the momentum and found their stride going into the playoffs. Maybe they've finally left those struggles behind where it seems like they could either win or get wrecked Maybe they finally left those struggles behind and are now able to start clicking off good finishes, have good race cars, and finally just start getting the finishes they feel like they deserve. But at the moment, he is slipping down the field a little bit. He's lost a couple of positions in the last lap, and he may lose another one here to the Benedetto any second.
Now, I mean, it does bring up the question as well. I mean, they won the first two races of the year, Daytona 500, then went back to back at the Daytona Road Course. You think maybe they were like, okay, we got our two races, we can experiment for the rest of the regular season? Could that have possibly led to the fall off? Other than, of course, their crashes they've been caught up in, but they also just on pace haven't quite been the same since those first two races.
I'm sure that was probably the thought process for at least a few races afterwards, if not maybe 10 or so races after he got those couple of wins. But I don't think he would want to have this go on almost this entire regular season. So I have a feeling that maybe it was. I have a feeling that they weren't necessarily trying different things every single race, and it just wound up them either having bad luck or they just didn't come with the right setup. In any one of those things, but to feel that now they are really starting to get themselves into gear and get ramped up for the playoffs, and that's probably why we're really seeing them. Oh, they got close there for a
Close.
moment. I think that's why we're really seeing them start to turn it up now. Is they realize it is go time, and they can no longer either try things or they can no longer rely on luck, and or just do the same thing they have been doing. They've got to get it turned up and ready for the playoffs.
Close call. There's, you see, Matt Dibenedetto actually is going to try and make a lunge up the inside of Kevin Harvick. Not quite close enough to pull it off, but you saw a moment between Daniel Suarez and an Alliance teammate of Austin Dillon there. Suarez won Pocono. He really had a charge in the middle part of the regular season where he was competitive, showing good speed, and then kind of stole the win in Pocono. We've seen a lot of wins kind of get stolen this season, and Suarez is a good example of that. Now he's in the playoffs, but ever since his win in Pocono, he has fallen off a cliff now as you see Matt Dibenedetto complete the pass on Kevin Harvick and move up into the sixth position now. A great run by Dibenedetto so far now, making up hopefully for those points they lost on that final lap in Watkins Glen last week now, as Brad Keselowski's been kind of following him through this pack as well, so keep an eye on the battle between those two drivers. Kyle Larson right now got about a second to Matt Dibenedetto, and then he's got about 2 seconds almost to Joey Logano up in front of him. Logano very quietly in the top 5. He was running good in Watkins Glen last week, and probably overall, Jay, I think a quiet road course racer. He's always good, but usually just never good enough compared to the talents we have now that are just dominating the road races these years.
He's certainly not one that we call a road course ringer, but he does seem like he always finds his way into the top 5 pretty much every single time we're at a road course, and he's just quietly there. He's quietly good, and puts himself in decent positions to get good finishes. He may not win these races, but he at least gets good points out of them. And now, especially with how many there are on the schedule, I'm sure he'll be looking to win some because it's going to become crucial. Maybe he doesn't have a win going into, now we have 3 races left in the regular season, and all 3 of those races are road courses, and he's outside of the playoffs somewhere, hypothetically. And so he'll probably be looking to get better at these road courses to where he can actually find himself in victory lane. But he's still good at them and is able to gain decent points every week. He just has not been able to find victory lane.
Logano with 1 win currently on the season coming into today. I can't remember actually what track that was at. Oh no, it was at Phoenix. I remember now, and a photo finished against his teammate of Ryan Blaney. Blaney been very competitive as well when it comes to these road course races, except for today, not even up inside the top 10 right now. You saw Kevin Harvick again lose a position to the number 2 of Brad Keselowski, as you see Kyle Larson. Can he hold off to Benedetto before this stage comes to a close? I think he can. He's got a nice comfortable gap over him. We will be coming here to just 2 laps to go in the stage, because we are going to actually, I was looking through, we're going to call stage 1 at the completion of lap 12, and then stage 2 we'll call it the completion of lap 25. And now look at what we have here is Kyle Busch has gotten to the back of Chase Elliott. So these guys are not done fighting just yet now, as he's right on the back bumper of that 9 car now. So Jay, I mean, right here, I mean, Chase Elliott not probably used to having Kyle Busch be quite a threat at a road course here, but it looks like if he's going to have to win this race, this is going to be something he has to deal with all day long.
These two are almost trading times, and they're fast. Kyle Busch will be fast for 4 or 5 laps, and then Chase Elliott's faster for 4 or 5 laps. These two really do, I think, have the 2 best cars at the moment. And we're gonna have to see if they can keep it that way when we go through pit stops here in just a couple of laps, and then for the rest of the day as well. But so far, these two have been almost evenly matched. Even when one gains the advantage, the other one gets it right back within a couple of laps. So Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott putting on a show so far, and it seems like they're going to be at each other for the rest of this race.
There you see Coca-Cola 600 winner from earlier this season of Bubba Wallace. Interesting little note there. Without that win, he would actually be outside of the playoffs now as well by 37 points. So he was actually inside the playoffs. He was right on that bubble for the majority of the season, and then of course got that win in Charlotte that puts him in. So he would be on the outside looking in by not a whole lot. He would be still up there in the mix for that bubble spot. You got Chris Buescher, who's not having a great run today, right now in 17th place, and what a downfall, Jay, we're seeing with that team. We've been talking about it over the last 4-5 races or so, is we're seeing that team continue to fall because we have mentioned they were once the regular season points leader. Well, now he's about 150 points back out of the regular season point lead, and now he's on the verge of missing the playoffs. What a downfall it would be for that Roush Fenway team. I mean, obviously we didn't expect them to be leading the regular season in general, but to go from that almost at the midway point of the season to missing the playoffs would be an unbelievable disappointment and even a shock for that Roush Fenway team.
Actually, I was sitting here looking at the points. Still, even if he winds up missing these playoffs, it's absolutely a fantastic season for that team. I went through and looked at the points. We have 5 drivers at the moment who have wins, who currently would be outside of the playoffs if it weren't for their win, including Kevin Harvick. Harvick would be out by 2 points. So Chris Buescher would be inside the playoffs by a pretty comfortable margin right now if it weren't for those 5 winners. So definitely a great season for that team, and even if they wind up missing the playoffs, something for them to hold their head high on. I know that they were the regular season point leaders at one point in the season. They were consistently good, consistently getting top 5s every week there for a while. So I'm sure that's going to be disappointing if they wind up going down this really bad stretch and missing the playoffs due to it. But compared to where everybody expects them to be, they did an exceptional job and should be proud of themselves. And it's something for them to build on the further we go down the line with the development, especially with the new car coming in next year. So even if they wind up missing the playoffs, I think that 17 team has to be really proud of what they've done this year.
Definitely a completely different performance they've put up compared to their teammate of Ryan Newman as Chase Elliott comes through to win stage 1 here from the Indianapolis road course over Kyle Busch. So 9 points for Kyle Busch, 8 points for Martin Truex Jr. Whereas Matt Dibenedetto, well, you go 7, 6, 5 points right there for the 21 of Matt Dibenedetto compared to Truex's 8. So he gave up 3 points in stage 1 to Martin Truex Jr., which is going to cut that gap between those two for that final spot right now at 4 points. And then, of course, Chris Buescher got no points whatsoever. So he was 23 coming in to the good to this race. Well, that is now below 20 points to the good for Chris Buescher. Tyler Reddick, of course, was not having a good stage. He came in 22 below. He's going to be definitely, if it keeps up, well below the cut line at the end of today. Kyle Busch, of course, with 9 points there, gained a little bit of ground. But it's got to be frustrating for him because second place isn't going to cut it when you got Matt Dibenedetto running P6 right now, as well as Martin Truex Jr. just running 1 spot behind you. But what we're going to do is we got a few moments here before they get to the pit lane. We're going to take a very, very quick break and come back your way for the pit stops here at the conclusion of stage 1. Back from Indianapolis. Onto the pit lane, everybody comes here at the end of stage 1. They won't have to run as many laps here in stage 2 as that comes to an end as soon as we complete lap 25, hitting lap 26. Very obvious call here is just 4 tires, 2 cans of fuel. And one of the things, Jay, that we're noticing, which is nice with these road courses, is actually, by the way, it looks like we have a few drivers gambling here. Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon included. They're going to stay out. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I was just going to mention that it definitely, these road courses we're seeing, it's really not that hard to pass for the lead. So it's really just about getting the lead. Doesn't seem like to be a big deal here. So it makes you always question a call like that 48 in the 3 car.
Yeah, we're certainly not seeing the struggling to pass that we have seen at some tracks, a pretty good amount of tracks we've seen this season. But I think for Bowman, he's in a situation of they have to try something. They have to try something different from everybody else. And if it works out for him, if they get a really quick caution here and he's able to get himself on, well, actually, no, I guess nobody else will pit. So I'm not too sure what that team is hoping for, but I also can't fault them for doing it because they have to do something different to try and get themselves in victory lane. Do I think it's a smart strategy? Not necessarily. I don't see how it could land them in victory lane in any way. But at this point, they're 100 points out as we have a very big collision on pit road. That's some pretty
Cody
heavy
Ware.
damage there to the 51. But yeah, they just genuinely have to try something different at this point. They're so far out of the playoffs that going and doing what everybody else is going to do is not going to get them in victory lane. They have to try something different. I just don't think it's going to work out this time around.
First incident of the day, Cody Ware going around in the pit lane. They're going to keep that damage and not fix that. So these cautions, we're already getting ready to come to the green flag here. As you see, Alex Bowman is going to be out front. So these restarts from the testing I've done, obviously there's nothing we can do about it. It's a little bit weird in the past because you're going to see the pace car. He is going to just haul the mail into the pit lane right here, and then everyone's kind of spread out. Look at these guys that have to catch up to the top two of Alex. Oh, Austin Dillon's actually going to decide to come into the pit lane, come into the green. So an interesting call there, but look how far back Chase Elliott is over Alex Bowman, who's coming to take the green flag. So stage 2 gets underway, and Alex Bowman is all by himself as everybody has to catch up, and now you're just seeing Elliott and Truex and the other cars come into the frame, but you can see what I was mentioning with just how spread out it can get. It seems to be, I don't know what it is, but I've done a few tests and it's hit or miss. Sometimes they stay together quite well, and sometimes you have a moment like that where Alex Bowman is just long out in front, and that is of course simply because he stayed out and everybody had to play catch up the whole lap. So it doesn't help that the pace car comes in on the same lap that the pit stops happen, basically. So nothing we can do about it, obviously. But Jay, we know Alex Bowman, he has to come in within a lap or two anyway. So in reality, it's not going to affect anything, and it's going to be down again between Chase Elliott as well as Martin Truex Jr. up front.
Yeah, that certainly helps him a little bit for the fact that he's not going to lose any positions before he has to pit, and he may wind up losing a couple less positions now with him pitting under green than he would have if everybody was caught up. But he's still going to wind up being way down outside the top 10 and not in a good position. So I don't know how well that's going to set him up for stage 3, but certainly for stage 2, he's going to put himself in a pretty bad position.
And we're going to probably see that 48 come into the pit lane this time by, I could imagine, as he heads up through Oval 2 and back into the infield before he goes into Oval 1. But could he come into the pit lane this time by? Yes, indeed he does. Alex Bowman making a pit stop here now on the end of lap 1 in stage 2. So that's going to hand over the lead back to his Hendrick Motorsports teammate of Chase Elliott there in that Napa Auto Parts Chevrolet Camaro. Martin Truex Jr. trailing in that second position. Kyle Larson P3 now, as last week it's like we saw an inaccurate representation of Kyle Larson for an actual race weekend. He crashed out in our Watkins Glen race after getting turned by Eric Almirola and then actually won the real life race. So usually he's been pretty even with how it's been going in real life in NR2003, but changed that up last week. But Jay, I mean, Kyle Larson has been unbelievable when it comes to road course racing this season. He won Sonoma, he won Watkins Glen, he was in the mix a little bit at Road America, probably his worst one, where he ended up getting turned as well by Alex Bowman, and then of course in Circuit of the Americas. We're all talking about real life, by the way. In Circuit of the Americas, he was up there in the mix and was in position to win until, of course, they called the race for rain. So Kyle Larson quickly becoming almost like a new Chase Elliott when it comes to road course racing.
I think it just goes to show how good he is all around at any type of track and any type of racing, with how good he is in the other series of racing he does as well, and majority of that on dirt. But yeah, Kyle Larson is just an extremely good race car driver, and I think that maybe the road course, his performance in the past on road courses was maybe down to equipment. But him being at Hendrick, having the way that team has been so good this season certainly helps him out a lot. And then I think also having a teammate like Chase Elliott, who's so good at these road courses, I'm sure, wow, Kurt Busch has got some heavy damage to his left side all of a sudden. Something happened to him there.
We got a car smoking.
We got a car smoking.
The 41 of Cole Custer. We'll see if he gets out of the way here. Hopefully he does as they go down into the infield. This could get a little bit awkward here, but he looks like he's going to stay out of the way. We'll have to, of course, see if we can find how Kurt Busch got that damage. I don't know if it was on the pit lane. Thank goodness they were that close to the pit lane. So Custer's already out of the way, so that doesn't really affect anything there. But yeah, I mean, Kyle Larson overall just a tremendous driver all around, and now that he's gotten into top tier equipment, he certainly is proving that week after week here on the schedule now. Is of course when you go to a plate race is probably still his biggest weakness now. Jay, we've seen him still struggle there, but of course there's nothing you can do about your luck when it comes to plate racing, and he's been known to have just awful luck when it comes to plate tracks.
Yeah, plate tracks are these days especially a lot down to luck, and when you're down on luck at plate tracks, it's really not gonna be in your favor at all. And especially if you're down on luck for the entire season, you go into a plate track thinking, well, this is gonna be really not good for me because the way these tracks are now, at least for this season, you have to be quite lucky to win at those tracks. We always have consistently seen big wrecks at the end of those races, except for this year's Daytona 500 because of the big wreck right at the beginning. But it's just been a constant thing at both tracks, at both races, or at all four races. There's always those 3 or 4 wrecks right towards the end to take out a lot of people, and it's led to some different winners, and it's led to some very lucky winners. So I think we're going to have that again at Daytona, and I think we're going to see, or we'll have the large possibility of someone new winning and getting themselves into the playoffs.
You saw Chase Elliott there having to work his way through lap traffic. Cody Ware looked like he came into the pit lane and fixed that damage because that left side does look a lot better. Kyle Larson trying to put some pressure on the back of Martin Truex Jr. He's going to make a move in the background. You see Almirola side by side, by the way, with Matt Dibenedetto as he's trying to pass that 21 car. Now, as Larson's going to be side by side with Truex, but get clear and up into second place goes the number 5, as Dibenedetto is going to probably give way right here. Yes, he will, to the 10 of Almirola. Seems like being on the right side of the track right through there is quite the advantage for everybody. As again, see now Suarez does the same thing that Larson and Almirola were both able to do. As we look at, where is that Cody Ware car? He should be just up here. There he is, in behind Chase Elliott now, who has over a second lead over second place right now of Kyle Larson. So not expected to see lap traffic in the mixes early in the race, but they are. But real quick, we are going to get a look at how Kurt Busch sustained that left side damage here in stage 2, which could be impacting his performance just a little bit right now as he runs down in the 13th position as we close in towards the end of the second stage. Here's a look. It was actually under the pit stops where Kurt Busch picks up the damage. Right there into the side goes the 41 car, and a good chunk of damage that almost got into Suarez as well, and that was all it took there for Kurt Busch as they'll look to get that repaired at the end of the second stage. So now here we are seeing the 19 of Truex trying to hold off his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate Kyle Busch. As of right now, as it stands, Truex has got 4 points at the end of stage 2 if it ends like this over Matt Dibenedetto, which would tie up the points for that final spot in the playoffs going into the start of stage 3. So Jay, I think honestly you look at you compare the two between Truex to Dibenedetto. If you're a guy like Matt Dibenedetto, you're just kind of hoping to maybe come out of this race in specific, maybe hopefully less than 10 to 15 points below the cut line, because you know, of course, you got Michigan and Daytona, where Dibenedetto, a very good plate racer by the way, compared to Truex, who has not been a good plate racer whatsoever in his career, that could really play to Dibenedetto's strengths.
Yeah, going into this race, I think if you're Matt Dibenedetto, knowing you only have a 7-point lead over Martin Truex Jr. with how good he is at road courses, I think if you leave here, especially after 2 stages tied, and then if you leave here after the race being within 10 points of him, I think you're feeling pretty good, especially considering Michigan is virtually going to be a plate race, and then Daytona, we know that'll be a plate race and how good he is at those plate tracks. Unfortunately for Dibenedetto, no matter how good he is at the plate tracks, specifically Daytona, he always finds a way to end up in a crash towards the end of the races. So hopefully this time around that doesn't happen and he's able to keep himself clean, and we have it come down to the very final lap between him and Martin Truex Jr. But yeah, I think that if he's within 10 points of Truex Jr. after this race, I think he's going to feel like he's in a very good position.
Some weird frame drops going on there once again. We had the same thing in Watkins Glen. It's acted a little weird, so what we're going to do is take a quick break here from Indianapolis Road Course and try to fix that once again here in the settings, but we will be right back from Indianapolis. Back from Indianapolis Road Course, 2 laps to go here in the second stage for this first ever NASCAR Cup Series debut around this historic track, just on the road course edition instead of the oval. Kyle Larson over 2 seconds back from Chase Elliott, who's dealing with a little bit of lap traffic right now into turns 1. Ross Chastain, your Talladega Super Speedway winner from earlier this season. He will compete alongside his teammate Kurt Busch in the playoffs now. As Kurt Busch, by the way, we've been seeing highly rumored speculation that he will be going to 2311 Racing next season as they look to expand to 2 cars, which means, Jay, I mean, if those rumors are true, which seem very likely, we're in for some 2 major just news drops here soon, of course, with 2311 expanding in general and Kurt Busch going to the team. And we heard him recently say that the deal is pretty much done. They're just trying to line up announcement dates, but we all assume at this point that's probably like the worst kept secret after Brad Keselowski and Roush that Kurt Busch in 2311 is going to happen next year.
Yeah, I think that one's almost worse kept than the Brad one is, even though there's been no official tweets from Adam Stern like there was the Brad one. I think that 23XI rumors floated around so heavily that it's pretty much just no longer a rumor at all. It's no longer a secret at all. Everybody knows about it. And Kurt Busch, I mean, I think him saying that it's already confirmed. They're just looking for dates to announce it. I mean, I pretty much think that confirms it in and of itself that he'll be going to that team. So the announcement will hopefully come soon, because I think that once we start seeing more announcements come, we'll see some of these silly season dominoes fall. But to me, it's looking a little less. I don't know about you, Gary, but silly season is looking a little less crazy now than it was a couple months ago, and we were all talking about all these wild things that could happen. And it seems like either things have just calmed down and I've forgotten about all the rumors floating around out there, or it truly just has kind of calmed down and it's not going to be as crazy as everyone thinks.
Definitely seems to be calming down a lot more. I did see a rumor. I think it was yesterday, day before. By the way, I see Bubba Wallace in the background on the pit lane. Interesting call there, as this will be the final lap of stage 2, so it could work out for them. We cannot penalize him for pitting after that 2 to go mark. But I saw a rumor that there is another full-time truck team that is looking to run part-time next year in the Cup Series, and not GMS, of course, because that's already we know they're doing full time or whatever. But this is a full time truck team looking to do part time. Not sure who, but that was like the last rumor I've seen.
That's very odd then, because I went into the Nitro Discord yesterday and saw one person post a picture of Bill McAnally Racing saying that they were going to go to the Cup Series, and I went on Twitter, looked around everywhere, didn't find a thing. The only thing I could think of, because it showed who was following in the picture, in that screenshot he took, it showed that Steve O'Donnell was following the team. So that was the only reason that I could think of he'd be saying that. But I guess if you're hearing rumors of that, then maybe is the team that's going to the Cup Series. And I'm not too sure where they're finding the funding. I don't know if that team is getting some big
The name I've never even
sponsorships.
heard of in trucks.
Bill, they've been around for quite a while. They've been, I think they've primarily been in ARCA for a long time. They're a pretty like staple team in NASCAR. They're just not a well-known team. So again, I don't know where they're going to get the money, if they're going to go full-time charter racing. I'm not too sure where they're going to find that money, but I'm always excited to see new teams come to the Cup Series, especially ones that want to be competitive. So if that's true, then hopefully they'll be a good team.
We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Chase Elliott is your stage 2 winner. He has swept the first 2 stages. I don't know if that's a good omen for that 9 team or not now, as we, of course, have seen how strong he's been at road courses this season. He tries to pick up that first actual road course win now. Kyle Larson was runner-up. I think Larson's got a lot of speed in that number 5 car today. He just hasn't had the track position, but now here he is up in second place. It's going to be interesting to see what they do on that pit stop. It's going to be very important for that team. Kyle Busch did lose a spot on the final lap, so he drops down to 5th place. Truex gets 3rd. Dibenedetto gets 7th. So that separated them by 4 spots, 4 points. It is now a tie. Dibenedetto was briefly ahead of Almirola in stage 2 for a little bit, but Almirola got back past. So they are tied for that final spot in the playoffs going into this 3rd and final stage. So it's getting down to the wire really here, as we just have these now 2 regular season races remaining after today, and we know we're in for just absolutely anything at Michigan. I've done some testing there. We're going to see 3 4-wide racing with the potential for some huge accidents, and of course Daytona with probably the exact same possibility. So a lot to look forward to, and Jay, we know that just still this playoff grid completely can change in these next 2 weeks, just given the 2 races we have coming up.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can change. We could possibly have new winners. We can have Truex and Kyle Busch, or Tyler Reddick all pick it up and really find themselves inside the playoffs. And Chris Buescher and Benedetto don't. There is a lot of things, even though there's only a couple races left, 3 including this race. There's a lot of things that could happen. A lot of ways this playoff grid could change. And I think after this race, we will no longer have the possibility of someone with a win losing out on the playoffs. So if we see somebody new win today, we could still see the possibility of somebody getting a win and losing out on the playoffs still.
Yeah, we definitely got to keep that in mind. As of right now, I don't know if we're going to see a surprise winner, but oh, I thought that was about to get close between Elliott and LaJoy. LaJoy is not on the lead lap, so I'm surprised he's pitting. But in the background, there's a little bit of an incident going on with Cody Ware. Actually got into the side of the 10 of Almirola and into the side. We got a car blowing.
Benedetto
Oh,
just
there's a
blew up.
crash. Oh no, I think it's a 22. No, it is a 21. Matt Dibenedetto has blown up out of the pit lane. Oh my goodness, the drama builds as he is going to be done for the day. Oh my goodness, the heartbreak for the Wood Brothers driver going into stage 3 was tied for the final spot in, and it's been the worst day possible to have. Very few incidents in DNFs. You see damage on the 4 and the 4 and the 10, and well, now the 17 because of that pit road little moment with Cody Ware, but they shouldn't be too affected by that. But wow, what a heartbreak moment. This is going to really spread things out on the restart, by the way, because everybody is having to check up. But wow, Jay, a huge moment because now these guys are about to give up probably at least 30 to 35 points here, and there's nothing they can do to get them back.
And now that Watkins Glen crash should have never happened looms even larger on that team and is possibly going to be the thing that winds up losing them out in the playoffs. Certainly, DNFing here today is also going to affect them huge. But even if they had still DNF'd but they had finished where they were running last week at Watkins Glen on the last lap, they'd still be, I think, inside the playoffs, if not still around the cutoff line. Now, with 2 races left, they're going to be at a massive, massive, massive disadvantage. And now they're going to be 30 plus points outside the playoffs. So huge season turning moment for Matt Dibenedetto, and I'm sure Brad Keselowski right now knows what he's done to his teammate. He's essentially uh, not ended his teammate's chances, but put him in a terrible position.
And you see how spread out things are for the start of stage 3, so it gets a little bit awkward with that. But once again, nothing we can do about it. The race comes to a close at the end of lap 50. As soon as we hit lap 51, the race is over. Corey LaJoy is not on the lead lap, neither is Ross Chastain, so it's kind of awkward with them mixed in as well. But Matt Dibenedetto is definitely, unless something crazy happens to Martin Truex Jr. or something here on these first couple of laps, he will definitely be well outside the playoffs, probably about 30 to 35 points out at the end of this day, and that's going to be big, but he still has the one fortunate side little potential option that helps him out, and that is Michigan and Daytona. So I still don't count Matt Dibenedetto out, but of course, nonetheless, these last 2 weeks have been a huge hit to that Wood Brothers racing team with a incident where they were forced into the wall by Brad Keselowski last week on the final lap of Watkins Glen to today, where there's nothing they can do about their engine failing. I believe it was an engine. It could be a gearbox issue as well. We're going to wait for some confirmation on the leaderboard of that. And Chris Buescher, once again, has found himself sneaking into the top 10 here. And of course, Jay, I mean, that DNF right there from Dibenedetto helps out Chris Buescher a lot, who is losing points quite a bit today as well.
It does help him out, and will still potentially keep him in the playoffs without a DNF or something drastic happening to that team. But he's still going to be in a worse position after this race than he was going into it, and still going to be hurting for points. So he's going to have to really turn it up for these last 2 races and make sure that he does not have any bad finishes and make any mistakes, and just make sure that there's no other new winner as well.
Interesting here, Bubba Wallace is going to come into the pit lane. Not sure exactly why, just maybe a different strategy. Anthony Alfredo as well is going to join him. Truex currently 5th, Kyle Busch running in 6th place here. So, I mean, a little bit awkward for Kyle Busch because now Truex, of course, is going to be that final car in. So Kyle really needs to be beating Truex today all of a sudden, and he's not able to do that right now. So Kyle's not going to gain a ton of points. He's definitely going to gain some here and get a little bit closer, we believe, but definitely not what he's capable of now. As you're seeing Kyle Larson try to chase down Chase Elliott, who seems to be having a bit of a tricky time getting around the 7 of Corey LaJoy, who actually started behind the 9 of Chase Elliott on the restart. So a bit surprising to see that he even got past the 9 in the first place. Maybe we missed a potential mistake right there. But Jay, I mean, lap traffic, especially if it stays green, that's going to be a thing here in this third and final stage. And now we're seeing the 9 struggle a little bit now. So this lap traffic could play quite the large role, similar to what we almost saw at Watkins Glen in real life in the way of Kyle Larson last weekend.
I was certainly expecting Chase Elliott to easily pull away from these lap cars here, and instead, I believe he started with LaJoy behind him, and now all of a sudden LaJoy's ahead of him. So certainly he is struggling here to start this third stage, and I don't know as to what is making him struggle, I don't know if they've made the wrong adjustments or what, but Kyle Larson is all over him, and you have to think Kyle Larson's not going to want to sit around and wait for him to get around the lap car and then go after Chase Elliott. Larson's probably going to want to attack Chase Elliott as soon as possible here and take the first advantage he's able to get. So, yeah, Larson right now is certainly licking his lips and wanting to hunt Chase Elliott.
And here he is trying to make that pass on the 7 of LaJoie after Elliott just got through. And it looks like they're going to be side by side into the chicane. Could get a little bit awkward there, but I think Larson will complete the pass. Yes, he will. So up into second place. Well, he was already second place, sorry. But now up in front of the 7, at least, of LaJoie. Chastain will be the next lap car they have to deal with. And then they got quite a bit of time till the 43 of Erik Jones. Joey Logano has been slowly improving his position all race long. He's up into third. He's been around the top 5 the whole weekend, or whole race. Denny Hamlin, Joe Gibbs Racing in general right now, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then you got to go down to 16th to find Christopher Bell. Martin Truex Jr., by the way, fastest lap of the day with a 131.995. The only driver that has broken into the 131s. Chase Elliott second with a 132.124. So we know that 19's got some speed, but does he have enough in this final stage? That is the real question. If he can get up to that number 5 of Kyle Larson, that 9 of Chase Elliott. But Truex, by the way, 9 seconds back, and that's all because of everybody getting so separated at the end, or at the beginning of stage 3. Of course, the Dibenedetto engine failure made it even worse for that happening now, as you see the Stewart-Haas duo of Harvick and Almirola still running top 10. Keselowski in the top 10 as well there in 9th place. And Jay, I mean, at this point, I think Roger Penske's glad Brad Keselowski's leaving, seeing all the chaos he's caused for especially that 21 car now at this point. As well, of course, Dibenedetto's leaving as well. But I don't think Penske would be too pleased with Brad Keselowski if this was real life.
Yeah, excuse me. He certainly wouldn't be at all, and especially after last week with the way that Brad drove to Benedetto, I think we would have seen Penske almost want to throw hands with Brad as soon as he got out of the car. You know, just with that ridiculous driving there was, and then coming into this week, it winds up putting that 21 car outside of the playoffs with that DNF. Without Brad Keselowski doing what he did last week, it would have left Benedetto still inside the playoffs. You know. It just goes to show how one race can really trickle into a series of bad races and really change your season. So that one moment there for Brad Keselowski and Matt Dibenedetto is now curtailed Matt Dibenedetto and being outside the playoffs, and not outside it by just a few points, outside it by several points, and going to have a lot of work to do to make it up in these final 2 races.
Here we are seeing a nice battle with these Joe Gibbs Racing teammates of Denny Hamlin, Truex, Kyle Busch, Almirola trying to come up there in the mix as well. I don't know if I would keep Almirola and Harvick in the mix because they're going to have to fix that left side damage whenever they do come into the pit lane here. 20 laps to go from the Indianapolis road course. What we are going to do, they have to pit in about 15 laps is what their fuel window is, so they'll have to pit here relatively soon in probably the next 10 laps. So we're going to take a very quick break here from Indianapolis road course and get ready for some potential green flag pit stops as Chase Elliott leads the way looking for his road course or first road course racing win of the year. Back from Indianapolis road course, you haven't missed a single thing while we were gone, except Kyle Larson. He's quite close now to the back of the 9 of Chase Elliott as they've been working on passing the 43 of Erik Jones. If Elliott wins today and hangs on, that'll be his second win on the season. If Kyle Larson wins, he will take the leading statistic for most wins on the year of 4, as of right now he's tied with Denny Hamlin at 3 wins apiece for those 2 drivers. But we are closing in on the only green flag pit stops that will be needed here. You can see on the leaderboard, by the way, the gap quite a bit, over 20 seconds between 1st and 10th place here in the closing laps of this race as we get closer and closer to the final 10 laps now. But Jay, we saw Chase Elliott lose Watkins Glen by pitting later than his competitor of Denny Hamlin. Do you think they learned from last week? Are you thinking we're going to see them pit before Kyle Larson here? Because we could easily see Kyle Larson pit 1 lap earlier and overtake that 9 car, who would have a tough time passing his Hendrick teammate, who's been just as fast as him today.
I'd have to think they learned from their mistakes and realize that they don't need to stay out longer than the person behind them. They need to be the first one to make that pit stop to keep themselves from getting overtaken. Sorry. So you'd think they won't make that same mistake again, but you never know. It's as Joey Logano is actually going to be the first one to go to pit road, so that's something to look out for.
and he's about 5 seconds back. So his only way of making that work is these guys are going to have to stay out for multiple laps, and they can definitely go 2 more maybe. So it is an interesting strategy. Logano can make it to the end. Is anybody else coming in? Yes, Martin Truex Jr. is going to come into the pit lane. I think it'd be a good call if Kyle Busch came in, but nope, he is going to stay out on the track. So Truex Logano deciding to pit a lot earlier than everybody else, and that's how Denny Hamlin won last week. As he pitted, not only did he pit a lap or so earlier, he pitted quite a bit earlier than everybody and made it work. Alex Bowman in the background I can see coming into the pit lane as well. But Jay, we were talking about earlier, of course, about drivers that need to stay on top of it with their adjustments today. Clearly, the 19 and 18 of Kyle Busch and Truex have kind of fallen off a little bit and faded behind the competition with that, because clearly they haven't been able to put up the same pace that Eric Almirola, Logano, as well as Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott have.
I think Truex has done a little bit better job than Kyle Busch's team has. But yeah, Kyle Busch went from being all over Chase Elliott in the first stage, and both of them going back and forth at each other and trading times they were fast. All of a sudden now he's really struggling. So yeah, they really missed some adjustments, I think, and it's kind of hurt them in a time where they need points.
And we're going to see here if Chase Elliott comes into the pit lane this time by. No, he does not. And Kyle Larson will stay out on the track with him. So Logano, already a bit of an advantage right there. Eric Jones is going to come in. Is Hamlin going to come in? No, he is not. So he's not going to try what he did last week. A bit surprising there. He's within 10 seconds of the leaders. Of course, the guy we're watching is Joey Logano. Almirola, he is going to stay out on the track along with Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick. Not a lot of guys electing here to pit. So interesting strategies here as we're going to get a look of, can we find where the number 22 of Joey Logano is. There he is right there, and Martin Truex Jr. is a little ways behind him. So Jay, right now, if these guys stay out, especially maybe 1 or 2 more laps, if they stretch it, this could be a big opportunity for Logano to steal the win, just like Denny Hamlin did last week.
I'm not too sure if the tire wear is that big of an advantage here, but if he gets more than 2 or 3 laps to stay out here on fresh tires, then maybe he is able to gain that gap up. I for a fact that tire wear is a thing. It does affect these cars here. I'm just not aware of how much. So it's very possible that Logano, if he gets 3 or 4 laps, he might be able to overtake these guys, but 2 laps may not be enough, considering also he was 5 seconds back. So it all depends on how long Chase Elliott decides to stay out here, and I think we might see him pit this time.
I would imagine this time everybody is going to come in and at the absolute latest next time by. So Logano is 49 seconds back at the beginning of the lap. So if they do stay out 1 more lap, which they are not going to, then we're going to have a good indicator of what they were gaining. But Elliott, Larson comes in. Hamlin will be coming around in a few moments' time, in about another 10 seconds. And like I said, I expect to see every single car on the pit lane right here. So now it comes down to a late race pit stop, 10 laps to go as they cross the line. So there you see Hamlin now coming in the background. Not a lot they're going to be able to do without a caution at this point, of course. Almirola, and like I said, pretty much everybody. So 4 tires, probably the obvious call right there, as Larson puts on the left sides, Elliott puts on the left sides. Jay, I mean, right here, if Kyle Larson beats him out of the pit lane, this is a huge opportunity for them, and I don't see Elliott being able to get by them.
I'm looking in the background here to see if I see Logano coming to the final couple corners, and I have not seen him yet, which is actually kind of surprising to me. I figured we would have seen him by now. So Chase Elliott's leaving pit road, and he's still not even coming out of that final corner yet. I don't know if Logano had a slow pit stop or what.
Here he comes now.
I don't even think he gained any time at all, really.
Elliott comes out, and Logano is definitely not gaining. I don't think he gained anything. I think you're right. I think he lost time, so he had to have been held up. Oh, the 14 of Briscoe. Something's happened there. There's damage on the 9 of Chase Elliott. I don't think there's no caution, but we missed something there as we were looking for Joey Logano. We're going to get a look here in just a moment. Let's just make sure the 5 car of Kyle Larson can get through. He's going to actually back out. Something happened between the 9 and the 14. It looks like they came together into turns 1 now, as Larson's struggling to get those tires heated up here and to get on to the move here and past that 14. But we're not going to waste any time. Let's get a quick look at what just happened there between the 9 and the 14. Here's a look at what happened right here into turns 1. Briscoe, who's not in the pit lane, of course, Elliott just coming out right here. They just come together into turns 1. Some damage to the 9 and the 14. Thank goodness he didn't go fully around. That would have been a caution, but that might have spiced things up a little bit more. But a very simple incident right there. You saw the 5 car get a little bit of an awkward moment through the grass, and that kind of put him under attack from the 14, who was able to get back by him. So now there we're seeing Chase Elliott continuing to lead the way. 4.8 seconds between himself and Kyle Larson in that 5 car. So Larson had a really rough getting up to speed lap and is quite a ways back. We also saw him lose time just downright on the pit stop against his teammate of Chase Elliott. So Jay, I mean, now 9 laps to go, coming to 8 laps to go. Is there any chance that 5 car has without a caution to maybe make up that 4.8 seconds?
We'll have to see here, I think, at the end of this lap to see how much Larson gains or even loses. Maybe that damage really is kind of affecting Chase Elliott, something that we can't see at the moment, and maybe it's a little bit heavier than we think it is. So I think we'll see here if he gains anything at the line. But yeah, I don't think that Larson's going to be able to catch Chase Elliott. You know, there's just too few laps left for how large that gap is. I think that Chase Elliott just has to hit his marks at the moment, not make any mistakes, and he'll be able to easily cruise home to victory lane.
Well, by my mathematics here, just by counting by Mississippi's, I think Larson is now over 5 seconds, even close to 6 seconds behind as they come through out of the final turn to cross the line. It is now 8 laps to go here from the Indianapolis road course. Elliott in command over his teammate of Kyle Larson there, as we're seeing some of those drivers on the pit lane, and it goes from 4.8 to now, okay, yeah, definitely I was a little bit off because it's 4.9 seconds. So he did lose a 10th. And obviously, he is going to need to be on the move now. You got a lap car now that he's going to have to deal with that Chase Elliott got out in front of as well. So now Kyle Larson's got all these obstacles, and it's making it look very unlikely that we're going to see him run down that 9 of Chase Elliott here before this race comes to a close. His only hope at this point is some type of caution, and you see him now getting held up by the 15 of James Davison. So, got to be frustrating for him. Jay, of course, Elliott is going to have to deal with that 78 of McLeod, so that could be Larson's maybe only hope there in getting him back into the mix at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's been a very clean race here. Are you a little bit surprised to see that? Now, I don't think we've seen a single incident other than, of course, that 14 and then a few things on pit lane there.
I was surprised to see that, but I think that it comes down to that unfortunate timing of Dibenedetto when he blew up. I think that kind of set the precedent that this race is going to be spread out because we already know that they're going to be spread out on restarts, and then that one spread them out even more. So there wasn't really ever a chance for any of these guys to be close together and have some kind of incident. So it's not terribly surprising considering the things we've had happen in this race. But going into it, I did not expect to have a clean race all the way through. I thought we'd have at least one wreck, if not a couple wrecks. But it seems like we're not going to have any today. So kind of surprising to me, especially with the way these NR races go. Pretty much every single time it feels like we've seen clean stage 1. It's always a hectic stage 2 and 3, but not this time around.
Larson lost about half a second there on that last lap, so 0.6 or so of a second he's given up in the final 2 laps. Elliott is going to have to deal with the 78 and the 34 here before this race comes to a close. So that's the only thing Larson's really banking on at this point. 7 laps around this track. It's about 1.5 minutes a lap, so still a good 15 minutes here of racing here in Indianapolis. So there's still plenty of time for something to happen. So what we are going to do is go for one final quick break here from Indianapolis Road Course and bring you to the end of these final laps here from Indianapolis. Back from Indianapolis Road Course, 3.5 laps remain here as Chase Elliott's dominant performance continues as he needs to hang on just for a few more minutes time. He got past the 78 of BJ McLeod during the break. Almost 6 seconds now separate him in second place of Kyle Larson. Jay, at the end of the day, this has been a dominant performance from Chase Elliott now, and really that team stepping up at the right time of the season.
This is really the first time we've seen them be extremely dominant where we expect them to be on the road course as well in NR. And he's really come out and shown that he's back to being, or at least for this race specifically, he's back to being in his ways at road courses. And if that team starts hitting on all cylinders at road courses, that means that they're probably going to start hitting on all cylinders at other tracks as well. So I think we'll see Chase Elliott get back into his form going into the playoffs as well, and we'll probably see him start to really ramp it up here. And look to have a lot of momentum going into the playoffs and be really strong.
And there is still a possibility of a caution. You never know. We got 2 laps for that to happen. But it looks pretty unlikely at this point now, as we mention every week. Keep in mind, you see extra laps there. We are doing 50 laps. It says 60 just in case of a caution, and that could give us overtime here from Indianapolis. But looking very unlikely. We haven't had a single incident caused caution today. It's only been stage yellows. So I don't know if we've had that this season. I think there was one oval race that we had that was really calm. But I can't remember which one it was. But Elliott looking very strong right now. I don't think you're going to see him really push the issue too much on the 34 of Michael McDowell here, closing in on these final 2 laps. And Kyle Larson, of course, giving it absolutely everything he's got, hoping that he can get there, but it's just not looking like that team, Jay, today had enough. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Elliott, maybe they got a couple adjustments in that car in that final pit stop, because clearly Larson hasn't had anything for them.
Yeah, Chase Elliott's had a great car all day long, so I think even though Larson's probably going to wind up finishing second here and at least 5 seconds back of Chase Elliott, I think that's still something good for that team to build off of. Obviously, you know, they came there, or they went up through the field a little bit. They gained quite a few positions. I think they were around the bottom of the top 10 to start this race. So they've gained quite a few positions, and they've also done a great job of keeping up with adjustments and putting themselves in position to at least be second place at the moment. So even though it's not a win, it's still a really great run for Kyle Larson, especially when recently he's been struggling a little bit in NR and in real life as well, I guess. So except for last week when he won, but you know what I'm saying. He's had a rough stretch of the season last couple of weeks. So this is the time for them to be turning it up as well. And I think, you know, everybody at this moment, playoff contention or not, is looking to really start having their best performances of the year, because this is when they're going to need it.
Joey Logano as well. He's been running pretty consistent lately, and he's showing that today, running third. Denny Hamlin, of course, won last week, running top 5 today. He hasn't won in real life this year, but he's been very consistent, and Hamlin has been pretty consistent here in our NR2003 season. But I mean, right now, I mean, Jay, Kyle Larson, we were talking about that regular season championship here as Elliott closes in on the start of the final lap. I mean, Elliott's going to gain a lot of ground today on Kyle Larson. They're going to be pretty close to dead even here in the regular season championship battle, and only 2 races left with Michigan and Daytona. Of course, we still don't know what's going to happen there. I don't expect them to be very, very close to one another at those 2 tracks, but nonetheless, it's going to be a battle right down to the final race in Daytona for that regular season championship.
And there's also going to be some more separation between Larson and Elliott back to Hamlin and Almirola as well. But I'm not too sure how the individual performances for Hamlin and Almirola have been. I'm not too sure what they have on stage points. But at the moment, coming into this race, those 3 points separating them, so the gap will be a little bit larger after the end of this race. So that one's separating a little bit as well. But there's still going to be some interesting points races going down into these final couple of races here, and we're going to have lots to watch. We're going to have the playoff cutoff to watch, and we're also going to have the top 3 spots and the regular season points to watch as well.
Chase Elliott leading the way on the final lap, looking for his 2nd win of the season here from the Indianapolis road course. He won at his home track about a month ago, somewhere in there at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and here he is now, a dominant performance here today from Indianapolis, and just has to get through a few more technical corners here and just play it safe. You see all the lap traffic. If we had another 10 laps to go or something, it could get quite interesting there watching him work his way through, but he's just got to hang on for about a quarter of a lap longer here now, as they are side by side up in front of him here. But if I'm Elliott, I'm just playing it as safe as possible here and just bringing it home. Jay, at this point, you don't want to get messed with that lap traffic here with just a few corners left.
We've seen lap traffic affect these leaders time and time again on NR, so I have a feeling Chase Elliott's just going to ride here. He doesn't need to push at all, doesn't need to go at these guys at all, has well over a 6-second lead at this point, and all he's got to do is just ride it home these last couple of corners. And he'll be in victory lane easily, so he doesn't want to go at these guys here and put himself in a really bad spot.
And out of the final turn, Chase Elliott comes through to win for the 2nd time this season at the Indianapolis road course, the first debut race for the Cup Series here. Kyle Larson didn't quite have enough. He comes through to cross the line, runner-up in 2nd position. Joey Logano will end up in your 3rd position. Denny Hamlin, we still have another minute of racing to cover, by the way, because of how far back some of these other drivers were. Denny Hamlin there crosses the line for 4th place. Kyle Busch, a strong day. I mean, Joe Gibbs Racing, other than Christopher Bell, a strong day overall. 4th, 5th, and what looks like P6 there for Martin Truex Jr. and that will just add on to the heartbreak for Dibenedetto, who's going to be well below the cut line here, side by side between Almirola and Suarez to the line there for that 10th position, and it's going to be Almirola getting it just barely over Daniel Suarez. Christopher Bell in P12, one of the better runs he's honestly had all year long, so it's looking very strong for Joe Gibbs Racing in general here today at the Indianapolis road courses. We're starting to see the rest of the field come through to cross the line. The 47 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. comes through. Chris Buescher all the way down to 22nd place. It's going to be still a pretty large hit to that team, but it does help that Dibenedetto had those issues as well. Let the rest of the field trickle on through, but we are going to get ready to wrap up this episode here from the Indianapolis road course. Jay, overall, we saw, some good racing. Obviously, we're a bit surprised probably that we didn't see a single caution-causing incident here today from Indianapolis, when I thought, both of us thought, especially at the initial start, 3 wide, multiple rows deep through turns 1 and 2. We were shocked that they didn't have a big pileup at that corner alone. So a surprisingly clean race here from Indianapolis.
Yeah, I didn't expect that at all coming into this race, but still an enjoyable race. And road courses, even if they don't have a lot of wrecks, generally put on a good race, Dylan, and have a good show for us. And that was the case again today, and especially Chase Elliott coming out here and absolutely dominating this race. Had a really good fight there with Kyle Busch on the first stage. Unfortunately for Kyle Busch, he wasn't able to keep his car up with the adjustments and fell off there towards the end. But another unfortunate thing as well is Tyler Reddick was not really able to take advantage of those struggles from Matt Dibenedetto. He finished down in 19th, way off the pace, almost a minute back of the leader, and then obviously Chris Buescher, sorry, finishing there in 23rd, losing points to Martin Truex Jr., gaining points to Dibenedetto, but still overall losing points to pretty much everybody else in this playoff fight. So it's going to be a wild last couple of races here. We're going to have a lot of positions to fight for and a lot of things to talk about. And we're going to have some exciting races as well with Michigan and Daytona.
And only 1 point for Dibenedetto there in 38th place. As you guys know, the bottom 5, 36th through 40th, only get 1 point in the NASCAR Cup Series. So very unfortunate just last 2 weeks for Matt Dibenedetto here at the road course races, where he was running, top 10 both weeks before everything went wrong. So very unfortunate for him. We'll have the updated points at the end of this episode. But looking up, we have Michigan coming up next week, and that will be the penultimate race of the regular season. And then after that, we'll have Daytona to cap off what has been a wild regular season here in NR2003. And I'm sure we'll get even crazier at Daytona. So if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. We would, of course, like to say thank you for taking the time of your day to watch this episode. We really do appreciate it, and we will look forward to seeing you guys again next week from Michigan International Speedway. Have a great day, everybody.